Hello. Welcome to this session on Agriscience Education Extended Grant Update for 2020. Our apologies that we couldn't deliver this in person for the Summer Conference 2020. We are going to have virtual options available for ALSCTE Summer Conference. So let's get started with this year's updates for those of you interested in the Agriscience Education Extended Grant. Our goals for today are just to remind you of the 20 deadlines, explain changes to the Ag Ed Extended Grant process and application, particularly as they relate to COVID-19, explain the grant process and common errors made, provide helpful tips, and answer questions about the process. Just a reminder, all of the desk audit information is due by August the 31st. This is signed and completed desk audit, which typically would be a score of 75%. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're requesting a minimum score of 50 rather than the usual 75. We arrived at this because you could do 50% of the things without student travel, either virtually or they would have already been conducted during the regular school year before the coronavirus pandemic. The final budget report is another piece of documentation. It will have two columns, a column for what you proposed you would spend and a column for what you actually spent during your non-contracted days on grant. The copies of your timesheet and certificates, please do not send originals. We're looking for the copies of those documents. And we're going to check and make sure that your program is in compliance. Your FFA chapter is in good standing. So that would be with BIC compliance and an FFA chapter in good standing for eligibility for the FY21 grant application. All Ag Ed Extended Grant items should be sent to Andy Chamness in the Montgomery office. Those addresses are on the application. Again, just a few documents: the desk audit, the final budget report, copies of timesheets and PD certificates, and making sure that your program is in compliance. There's another video that will be produced called the 5 Pillars, which will explain those pieces for continued compliance as well as chapters in good standing. Just a little data and history on the number of applicants. We're holding steady in the 80s with the number of applicants. The average performance-based, you can see, continues to rise, which is a good trend. This tells us that the grant is working and more people are becoming more involved. Teachers are doing more and providing more opportunities with students, and that our programs truly are improving because of this process. The average total score has also continued to see an increase, jumping 10 points over the last 2 years. The average amount of requested has also seen an increase. As you know, with the FY20, the total was moved from $16,000 to $18,000 with that $1,800 available for out of state of that $18,000 budget. The statistics you see here are a direct relation to that increased funding level from $900,000 to a full $1 million available for the grant. This is a competitive grant, and we'll discuss that in brief in a few moments. So our role at the State Department is to create the application and requirements with input from industry and committee members, and again, to drive program improvement. We receive applications, identify readers, divide applications into random reader groups, and distribute those for scoring. This typically takes over 50 independent readers. We tally the results, provide a list of the results to the State Superintendent of Education for Career and Technical Education, produce a cut line where the money runs out at the $1 million. We create award letters that go out to superintendents, typically in the first part of the year. January, February are our target dates for that notification. We provide reader comments only. Unfortunately, we cannot share score sheets, and we cannot reveal the names of readers. We collect the desk report audits and tallies and make visits, follow-up visits to those teachers who have participated in this grant process. We want to increase student opportunities. That's the goal through FFA, SAE, and classroom instruction. The maximum dollar amounts, again, as I mentioned before, we have a total of $1 million provided to us by the state legislature for FY21. The total maximum award that you can apply for as a teacher is $18,000. The total of that $18,000 that you may use for out-of-state expenses is $1,800. Again, you can apply for up to $18,000 in grant money as a supplement to your non-contract days. So here's how it works for the eligibility. Teachers that are on a 220-day or less contract are beginning their second consecutive year as an Agriscience teacher. To help clarify that, if you are moving schools, you may use the previous school year data to apply. In other words, if you transferred from school A to school B, you are still a second year Agriscience teacher, provided that your first year was in Agriscience education. You have an FFA chapter that is in good standing, 100% career and technical duties on the program application. This is designated by your career and technical director. You make a minimum performance-based evaluation score of 100 points or higher, which the state staff will validate based on registration, performance indicators, etc. Registration attendance of members of the 2020 state convention, with the caveat this year, because the nature of state convention due to the coronavirus, state convention attendance requirement will be waived for the FY21 application. This will not count against you because we did not hold an in-person convention. Submission of Form 1 of the national chapter, this is due by September the 15th, is completely electronic and done through ffa.org and or the AET. If funded in FY20, you must have submitted documentation, including the desk audit, and completing at least 75% of the items on the desk audit. So how can you lose eligibility? Submitting an incomplete or incorrect application will result in ineligibility. Not scoring the cut score or higher on the previous year's final desk audit. Not submitting a final desk audit, budget, timesheet, certificate for the previous year's application. Not meet one of the eligibility requirements on the previous slide. Have a deficient program or FFA chapter. Any ineligible applications will be returned and not evaluated. Some common eligibility questions. If I transfer systems or move out of the classroom, will I lose my award? Yes. If you transfer systems, say at Christmas break, you forfeit your grant funding for this year. The funding flows through the LEA. Those LEAs will then return the funds to the department to be used at the discretion of the Assistant State Superintendent for Career and Technical Education Workforce Development to fund other CTE projects. What about if I transfer internally? If you transfer internally within the same system as an Agriscience teacher, you will be able to keep your grant dollars awarded. Again, because those monies flow through the LEA. Out-of-state travel, including registration to an out-of-state event, cannot exceed $1,800, which is 10% of the total award. If conference, such as Washington Leadership Conference, costs exceed the $1,800 allowed, the remainder of the cost would have to be made up with local funding, which is an opportunity to work with your local career tech director or local business and industry, or paid out of pocket by the attendee. So what are some allowable expenses for this grant? Stipends and benefits beyond regular contract days used must amount to the actual days worked. In other words, you can't claim 52 days during a 45-day summer. Registration for professional development, you must provide a certificate. The teacher travel expenses for chaperoning students to Agriscience or FFA related events beyond regular contract days, attending approved professional development activities regulated to Agriscience classroom instruction SAE or FFA beyond regular contract days. And again, must be beyond the regular contract days. That means off contract. Some non-allowable expenses. You may not purchase supplies or equipment with these monies. No printing or professional services. Any additional costs for students. You may not pay your $200 chapter fee. Banquet supplies are not to be purchased with these funds. May not purchase food for advisory committee meetings, banquets, students, etc. Only your own per diem costs. Anything while still on contract. For example, if you are on a 10-month contract, state convention is typically held while you're still on contract. Any applications with these items will be disqualified and returned. So here's some great tips and my best advice for a successful application. Read the application thoroughly. Follow the instructions laid out in the application. Make sure all of your dollar amounts are accurate and rounded to the nearest whole dollar. No cents on the budget page. This number should match the cover page. Double check grammar and spelling before signing in blue ink. Double check that the application is laid out in the correct format before signing. Read the application and instructions thoroughly again before signing. Ensure performance-based evaluation section is accurate. We do double check these items. Take ownership of making sure signed application, again in blue ink, and 4 copies get mailed on time. Keep a copy for yourself. Make a copy for your CSFO, your career tech director, and anyone else involved in this process in your LEA. Make sure the budget page has all of the function and object codes completed as applicable before submission. These items could result in you not being eligible for the grant or not receiving your money in an orderly and timely fashion for the grant. So the due date for this year's application is October the 9th. This is the first Friday in October by 4:30 p.m. That is the close of business on that particular day. Applications may be hand-delivered or mailed. The addresses, both mailing and physical addresses, can be found in the application. Our administrative assistant will notify you by email that we have received the application, regardless of how you deliver the application. The application must be typed in 12-point double-spaced font. This includes the title page. A Word version as well as a PDF version are available on both the SDE website and the AlabamaFFA.org website. This should be stapled in the upper left-hand corner and the document placed in the correct order with the title page as your first page of the document. Do not place it in a binder, folder, or sheet protector. Do not send additional pages with the application. Must have 1 original signed in blue ink and 4 copies on white paper. All the copies may be signed in blue ink, but the original must be signed in blue ink. We keep a copy in-house. There will be 1 copy for each of the readers, and the original copy will go to SDE accounting for signatures and verification. This is the order in which you submit the document. Application on the title page. The statements of agreement. Again, signatures required there. Performance-based evaluation. This is a self-assessment on the things that you have done throughout the school year. Proposal narrative. This is an explanation of how you intend to utilize these funds to grow your program and create opportunities for your students and yourself. Proposed detail budget. This is where the cents and exact estimates, I know that's silly to say, but as close as you can, comes into play on your detailed budget. You take the information you've established on your detail budget, round it, and transfer it to the proposed budget, which is the document we go by for budgeting purposes. And then your management plan. This is sort of a log on how you're proposing to actually implement what you mentioned in your proposal narrative. Assurances. Do not include anything else. Please don't add resumes, support letters, or the remaining pages of the application. Your assurances are a document that will be signed that basically say you have attested to meeting all the requirements of this application. Again, this is the order: application, title page, agreements, performance-based evaluation, proposal narrative, proposed budget, detailed budget, proposed budget summary, management plan, and assurances. Here's an example of the cover letter, or the cover title page of the application. This page should be the first page in your application. Ensure all information is correct. Your school system will have a code. Your school district is different than your FFA district. Your school district's name, system code is a 3-digit code, and the rounded amount that you are requesting in that top corner, as well as your information. Here's an example of what the statements of agreement look like. These are assurances saying that you've met all of these items mentioned in this particular page. This is an example of what the performance-based evaluation looks like. You'll want to keep this and your documentation in a binder as you move through the year. You will complete the third column with quantity, as well as the points awarded column. Please make sure you are putting accurate data into this system. Some items in the performance-based evaluation section have changed, either to clarify because the program has grown, the program doesn't exist, or because of COVID-19. Please review carefully for new point allocations. The proposal narrative is that, again, that written document explaining how you will spend funds. No more than 5 pages, 12-point font, must be typed, should be a detailed explanation of your plan, describing the needs of your program, the activities that will meet those needs, including any data that supports your needs and activities. Identify how activities will be measured for success. Again, this is a sample of your management plan. It should be a summary. All activities on the budget should be listed on the management plan. This is your detailed budget. This total will be used to complete the budget summary. These figures may have a decimal, and it will be the number of working days. If you claim 15 days, you work 15 days. In other words, if you've requested an estimated 15 days, then that's what you're suggesting you will be paid, and the final budget will correspond with the proposed budget. We do realize that life happens and things happen, and that is a discussion for you and your LEA on how you work those days. So this is a separate page for in-state and out-of-state funds, and please read the notes at the bottom. Make sure to round all values to the nearest whole dollar. This is one of the most important pages. It's your budget summary page. Please utilize your CSFO Career Tech Director to help you figure out and calculate the percentages based on your salary and benefits, your request for in and out of state travel, and then most importantly, the function codes and the budget dollars must be filled in, and the total rounded to the nearest whole dollar at the bottom must be calculated correctly and accurate. The assurances page, again, must be signed in blue ink and are included in the grant application. So what if something changes? We realize plans change because activities are anticipated well in advance for inclusion in your grant. You can change your plans and still use grant funds to cover expenses as long as your local CSFO and administration approve. For example, a workshop doesn't pan out, so you begin to register and attend a different workshop. That decision will be made locally because the intention of the funds is the same. You do not have to submit a revised application unless the changes are significant. Otherwise, send in an explanation with your desk audit and other documentation in August as to why that funding changed or that activity changed. Any unspent funds will be returned with the desk audit and other documentation in August. And one final reminder on this page, you cannot transfer out-of-state funds to another fund item. Out-of-state must stay in the out-of-state coded items. So the points allocation rubric is another piece of the document I would suggest that you become familiar with. It breaks down how all of the points add up to a total of 400. Again, this is a competitive grant application with a perfect score being 400. So just some general tips from the folks that read and evaluate these applications. Number one, follow the instructions on the application. Proofread your documentation, your documents. Grab an English teacher at your school to help you. Have a spouse look over it, or just read through it multiple times. Be sure copies are of high quality and aren't missing pages. Copying machines sometimes tend to skip pages as we make copies. You must have the original and 4 copies on white paper. Copies cannot be made in colored paper. Please don't share work. Duplicates will be identified. Be sure your application doesn't list a different school name in the narrative. For example, if you did change schools and your old school, you still have information regarding your old school that, for example, if you're going to talk about the projects you have in your narrative at your new school, you may not want to talk about what you're planning to do at your old school. PD is good, but only PD is bad. Remember, this is about student contact hours and giving opportunities to students. Readers are looking for contact time, for real SAE supervision, planning with advisory committees, and planning program of activities. Multiple teacher departments should identify different weaknesses and activities to include in the individual's grant application. As always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Andy Chamness or one of our staff or one of your regional improvement specialists for direct assistance and questions. We want to see this project continue to grow and be a positive impact on our agri-science education students across Alabama. Thank you so much for your time in watching this video. I hope it's been informative. Again, the applications are posted on both the SDE website and alabamaffa.org. Thank you and have a great day.